Hello everyone, welcome to BRICS Youth Chat. I'm Xu Yawen in Beijing. In today's episode, I'm joined by three of my colleagues, and we're going to discuss the ongoing BRICS Summit that's happening from August 22nd to 24th in Johannesburg, South Africa. The theme of this year's summit is BRICS and Africa. It's reported that over 40 heads of state and government are participating in the meeting, making it one of the largest gatherings of leaders from the Global South in recent times. So what's the significance of the summit, and why do we see more and more countries lining up to join the bloc? What opportunities will BRICS offer to Africa as well as the Global South, especially to the young people? So before we delve into these questions and more, let's firstly welcome my colleagues and see what their focuses are on the summit. So we have Ms. Pearl Buthelezi, she's from South Africa. We have Konstantin Shepin, he's from Russia, as well as my colleague Huang Jiyuan, he's from China. So first of all, guys, why don't you give our audiences a brief introduction of yourself, as well as what are your observations on the summit so far?
Well, yes, as you just said, I'm Pearl Buthelezi, or Zanele Buthelezi. I'm from South Africa, and I've been here in China for just over 5 years. And what I'm looking forward to in these discussions that are about to start in South Africa is the topic of expansion, BRICS expansion, because there's been a lot of talk in the build-up to this summit. And so I'm interested to see who gets in and who will get their entry into this bloc delayed. I'm also looking forward to discussions as to how we strengthen trade among member countries, as well as those who are interested in joining but won't be joining this time around, because that's the main focus of BRICS, to promote global economic development. And these countries that are coming together, these are countries that are needing that development when it comes to the economy, and are worst affected by what is happening right now in terms of the economic crisis that is plaguing the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that, Konstantin, you have been nodding your head while Pearl was giving her points. So
right, I totally agree with what Pearl said, but I think I'd like to expand the topics that the BRICS countries are going to discuss in South Africa. High on the agenda is a topic of de-dollarization of the economic cooperation within the framework of BRICS. Mm-hmm. What we're probably going to see is the discussions of, using the national currencies, or maybe just even, working out the e-currency for the BRICS countries. It is very, important. This topic is indeed very important for Russia because, as we know, Russia and China are well ahead in that process. Right now, the Sino-Russian trade is serviced in national currencies for more than 80%. And it feels, this kind of de-dollarization feels very secure on one hand, but on the other hand, we feel the lack of financial infrastructure. So that's a very important topic to be discussed within the framework of BRICS. Also, obviously BRICS have been and is still going beyond just the sphere of economic cooperation. So there will be another multiple topics of the discussions. The one I gotta check into during the summit is the promotion of the so-called media diplomacy. Our media, BRICS media, are gonna talk a lot. There will be a lot of events concerning that question about strengthening the media cooperation, strengthening the overall voice of BRICS on the globally, basically. Mm-hmm. So that's also something to look into, as I see it.
Yeah, as you said, de-dollarization, BRICS expansion, as well as media diplomacy remain some of the topics attract you the most.
Yeah, I think my colleague will expand these topics further.
Well, I'm really here just for the tourist tips and food tips. I've never been to South Africa before, so I'm kind of looking forward to visit sometimes. And just to echo what my colleague has said, I think, de-dollarization will be a top priority in the this year's summit. But of course, we have to face the fact that there are some difficulties there. Not only is dollar still the dominant currency in the world, and also, people have always said that dollar is backed by the U.S. military power. So how do we make sure that the BRICS currency have enough of a force, whether it's political, economic, or military perhaps, to strengthen its foundation. So I think, yeah, we're going to have to delve into that. And I do think it's a long process before we can finally see the currency be put out there.
Yeah, well, those are all very great opinions. I mean, great talking points we're going to delve more into during the show. But before that, we know the theme of this year's summit is BRICS and Africa. So Pearl, since you're from South Africa, what does that mean for your countries to host the summit? What's the significance for African countries to embrace this summit?
Well, what we are seeing here is a spotlight that's been shown onto Africa as well as South Africa. And it means that we'll have issues that concern African countries being center stage of the discussions that will be taking place down in Johannesburg, South Africa. And so for a long time, African countries have felt that they've been left behind by many developed countries in every discussion that takes place. The Global South has had to fight for their issues to be heard when it comes to climate change. We saw in Egypt with the climate discussions that were happening, the UN climate discussions that were happening, there's still issues of financing the transition from coal or fossil fuels to clean energy. There's still a fight there as to where this financing is going to come from. You also go to other platforms, multilateral platforms. There's still a fight for African countries to make their voices heard. And so now this is the opportunity for South Africa to lift its voice in terms of what it needs to see come out of these discussions, because South Africa is also a country that is facing a lot of, challenges when it comes to the economy, most importantly, as well as unemployment, which is a huge issue. And so when we have these discussions as BRICS nations, we need to come up with resolutions as well as ideas that will support the development of these smaller countries or developing countries, as well as create opportunities, come up with ideas that will foster new opportunities that will create jobs for our young unemployed youth. Because South Africa, as well as South Africa, we are a very young nation. We are a very young continent as well as a young nation in terms of South Africa. I mean, the average age in Africa is 25 years old. So we need to have those young people occupied in terms of jobs and ensure that we build up our nations so that we don't get what is happening in West Africa, where we are seeing a lot of young people rising up and opening up a space for coups to take place because people are frustrated. They are sick and tired of living in poverty, and so they are trying new things. They are supporting people that they feel will bring them change. We don't know that coups actually do bring changes or not, but this is what we are seeing developing, and hopefully the discussions in South Africa will come up with ideas that actually give people alternatives in terms of, good ideas that will take us to the path of development as well as democracy that many countries yearn for.
I catch one key word Pearl just said, alternative, because this is one of the very frequently appeared word when I was doing research about the BRICS Summit. Also, like last week when I was speaking to a few scholars from South Africa, they also came up with this word, alternative. And they said the BRICS Summit offers another alternative platform for the developing countries and emerging markets to unite together, to strengthen their voice that has been neglected for far too long on the international stage. They said through BRICS platform, they can really be there and create this fairer and more inclusive organization that could benefit all. So I'd like to hear what are your thoughts on this, Konstantin?
Well, I totally would like to agree with what you just said. And basically, what you've just been talking about is exactly why BRICS we can't call it an organization, right? But BRICS as a platform, probably BRICS as a club, is so attractive to a lot of developing countries. Why? Because basically a lot of developing countries are just tired of Western style way to deal with the international relations. They're tired of, Washington-led economic coercion. They're tired of Cold War mentality when two blocs are fighting each other. They are tired of psychology of you're either with us or you're against us. They want an alternative. They want to have choice. They want to choose their partners. They don't want to be coerced into cooperation or submission by somebody, from behind the ocean. So that's why BRICS, with its values of, mutual respect, mutual benefit, dialogue, exchange, the BRICS as the platform gives the developing countries that choice. And it's been given this choice not just today or yesterday. This process has been ongoing. For example, it's very symbolic that it was exactly 10 years ago during the BRICS Summit in South Africa, in Durban, that the first, platform, the first mechanism of further BRICS expansion was settled. It was 10 years ago. This mechanism was called outreach, which meant that the BRICS countries are basically proclaiming that they're not the exclusive club, that they are ready to cooperate with any country that is interested to do that. They are ready to give them choices. They're ready to, mutually, to build up the mutually beneficial relations. And that's what exactly 10 years ago this process started. Now we're on the finish line, we're approaching the finish line. Exactly 10 years later, this summit in South Africa again, we're gonna, work out probably the procedure, right, of further expanding the BRICS. So everything looks very logical to me in this 10-year-long process.
And some people might also be raising questions about, maybe Russia is trying to do this through this process, or maybe China is trying to do some nefarious things through this process, forgetting that the relationship between Africa and all these other countries, whether it's China or Russia or Brazil or India, dates back many years. And so this is just a continuation of that engagement between these countries. And now we are seeing countries that are coming from South America as well as the Middle East that are also wishing to join this club or this bloc. But China, if you look at the theme, you mentioned BRICS and Africa, it's nothing new. China and Russia, as well as India and Brazil, they've always been close to African countries, as well as South Africa. South Africa has a very long history, especially during the liberation struggle when we're still under apartheid government, and many of our, liberation fighters went abroad in exile. They got support from countries like Russia, as well as China, Brazil, and Cuba, which has expressed interest in joining, or has applied actually, to join BRICS. So this is a continuation of strengthening this relationship between these countries. And this is very encouraging because many of these countries, as I said earlier, many of their people, the populations in these countries, are struggling, and they're looking for answers to ending poverty that is plaguing them, as well as unemployment. And BRICS is promising that. It's in their, their motto and the words that have been spoken over and over by leaders that, we are here for peace, we are here for security, and we are here for cooperation. And so everyone wants a piece of that. Who doesn't want peace in their country? Who doesn't want development, as well as, cooperation, living in peace with your fellow man and fellow women? So I think that's what we are hoping to see being strengthened in these discussions that will take place in Johannesburg. Hopefully bigger and better things will come out of the talks.
And I think one of the attractiveness of BRICS is that, like Pearl said, it's that continuous engagement between countries. I read an article, I think this morning that makes the equivalent between BRICS and the G7. I think that's one of the most frequent equivalents made. But there's a fundamental difference between these two. I mean, G7 is a very closed-off set club. And BRICS is always opening, trying to engage more people, trying to expand itself. I mean, the fact that there's no set structure of this platform, as Konstantin said, it opens up opportunities and it allows this platform to keep evolving. But when you look at G7, you know, these organizations have a very set structure. And if we're really talking about the political part of it, it's really led by one country, which is the United States, because economically they are all intertwined, and the fact is they are all linked together by security pacts. The United States is supporting the Japan with a defense pact, then there's NATO, which groups together all the rest. So I think that's fundamentally different from BRICS, and that's why I think the BRICS expansion, it's always being talked about, is that BRICS expansion is welcoming a lot of difference in there. It's engaging people. It might not be that fast of a process. Like you said, it takes 10 years to just set out the procedure. So, but it keeps evolving, keeps going. So I think that's why more and more people are looking to BRICS
They're eager to
for
join
future.
in.